Go to overcomecompulsivehoarding.co.uk/online therapy to get 20% off your first month of cognitive behavioural therapy, with weekly sessions online with a therapist, in addition to worksheets, a journal, meditation and yoga videos, and unlimited messaging. There's strong evidence that CBT can help people who hoard, and accessing therapy online can be affordable and accessible. Find out more and get your discount at overcomecompulsivehoarding.co.uk/online therapy.
Since 2013, Bombas has donated over 100 million socks, underwear, and T-shirts to those facing homelessness. If we counted those on air, this ad would last over 1,157 days. But if we counted the time it takes to make a donation possible, it would take just a few clicks. Because every time you make a purchase, Bombas donates an item to someone who needs it.
Go to bombas.com/ACAST and use code ACAST for 20% off your first purchase. That's bombas.com/ACAST, code ACAST.
1-800-Flowers.com is more than your birthday, anniversary, or just because gift-giving destination. We put our hearts into everything we do to help you celebrate all life's special occasions with friends and family. From our farmers and bakers, florists and makers, everything from 1-800-Flowers is made with love every step of the way, because we know that nothing is more important than delivering a smile. To learn more, visit 1-800-Flowers.com/ACAST. That's 1-800-Flowers.com/ACAST.
I'm Sandra, and I'm just the professional your small business was looking for. But you didn't hire me because you didn't use LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn has professionals you can't find anywhere else, including those who aren't actively looking for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role, like me.
In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you'll miss out on great candidates, like Sandra. Start hiring professionals like a professional. Post your free job on linkedin.com/spoken today.
Welcome to the Overcome Compulsive Hoarding with That Hoarder podcast. I am drowning in stuff and trying to find a way out. Listen as I explore the issues and delve deep as somebody profoundly affected by hoarding disorder. Find out more, including links to subscribe to the podcast, at overcomecompulsivehoarding.co.uk, and follow me on Twitter at That Hoarder, and on Facebook at facebook.com/That Hoarder. So today I'm going to start with some reviews I've received. It never occurred to me to check whether I'd received any reviews, but I just found 2 reviews, one on Apple Podcasts and one on Audible. I don't think I even knew my podcast was on Audible. And honestly, it is so amazing to read people's thoughts that are so positive. It helps people find the podcast, as I understand it, when they get good reviews, but also, you know, this is a difficult thing for me to make every week. It makes me feel vulnerable and exposed, and it's so encouraging when people are nice about it. So first of all, on Audible, Zoe said, "Could I be saved? It's too soon to tell, but until now I haven't come across anything that doesn't feel condescending or patronising. But instead, this really feels like it actually might save me before I lose myself again. Thank you." Zoe, thank you. I'm glad it doesn't feel condescending or patronising. I know exactly what you mean. Some approaches definitely can, but you can save yourself. You can. Let's do it together. And then on Apple Podcasts, John said, "I'm enjoying listening to your show. You have a soothing voice, and it's obvious that this is a difficult but potentially rewarding endeavour. I wish you the best and hope more episodes will come out. Please consider reading books on the podcast because you have a very approachable speaking style." Thank you, John. Again, it means so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you. So today I'm going to talk about putting like with like, and that means putting similar things together, basically. And I found it's a really useful way of approaching a hoard. It has several benefits, and it's also a reasonably easy place to start. So that's its first benefit. When you start putting like things together, it's not forcing you to throw anything away. It's not forcing you to even make decisions, which is why it's a good early step. All you're doing is putting all the scissors in one pile. I don't know why I always come back to scissors. I'm sure I've mentioned scissors a number of times on this podcast. But yes, just put all your scissors in one pile. Put all your bras in another pile. Put all your CDs in another pile. You don't have to worry when you're starting about putting them in what will ultimately be their final resting place. You don't have to have a storage system implemented yet. Although if you do, then you can save several steps later on by putting them in the correct place. But you don't need that for the time being. You might want to put all like with like in the same bag or on the same table, or it might just be a pile in the corner for the time being, and that's fine. That's fine. Don't let that be a barrier. And one of the benefits of putting like with like is that you'll start to realise just how much you have of one particular thing. You'll find that can reassure you. It can reassure your anxious brain that you're in no danger of running out of bags or shoes or toilet paper or cardboard folders or whatever it is that you're suddenly putting in piles that start to tower. And you will find that you go, okay, I might be anxious at the prospect of running out of carrier bags, but now I'm putting every carrier bag I find in the same place. I realise I'm seriously not going to run out of carrier bags for at least 6 years. Because as you see more and more and more of the same stuff going into the same place, it is impossible to deny that you have enough of certain things. In fact, you almost certainly, with some things, will have multiple times what you would need to have enough. Another benefit of putting like with like is that ultimately, don't let this put you off if you're just starting, but ultimately it will allow you to feel easier about letting go of some of that stuff. When you see the vast pile of Christmas wrapping paper that you own, you may get to a point where you say to friends, does anyone need any wrapping paper? I've got some spare. And you will feel safer doing that because there's no danger that you're going to run out. When your Christmas wrapping paper is spread over 4 rooms and you're anxious that you won't find it in time for Christmas, then you won't even consider giving any away when you find it. But when it's all together and you think that will cover the next 10 Christmases and more, you might just relax a bit at the prospect of getting rid of some of it. Yet another benefit of putting like with like is that as you do it, over time, it will give you a better idea of what kind of storage solutions you will need in the long term. Now again, don't try and judge this at first. You need to go through the stage where you realise you have enough or too much of something, followed by ideally gently and carefully getting rid of some of it in order to have a more realistic plan for how it's going to look when it has a proper place. But the longer you do this for and the more consistent you are, the better you will understand how you need your home to be. So you might have 35 rolls of Christmas wrapping paper and you get rid of 15 of them, safe in the knowledge that you've still got 20 left. And then you can start to think, okay, over the next few years, if I don't buy any more Christmas wrapping paper, which I won't need to do because I have 20 rolls, then I will need X amount of storage to keep these somewhere so that next Christmas I'll know exactly where to find it.
Hey, Dave.
Yeah, Randy.
Since we founded Bombas, we've always said our socks, underwear, and T-shirts are super soft. Any new ideas?
Maybe sublimely soft.
Or disgustingly cozy?
Wait, what?
I got it. Bombas. Absurdly comfortable essentials for yourself
And for those facing homelessness.
because one purchased equals one donated.
Wow, did we just write an ad?
Yes.
Bombas. Big comfort for everyone. Go to bombas.com/ACAST and use code ACAST for 20% off your first purchase.
Normally, being a little extra might be a bit much, but not when it comes to healthcare. That's why United Healthcare's Health Protector Guard fixed indemnity insurance plans, underwritten by Golden Rule Insurance Company, supplement your primary plan so you manage out-of-pocket costs. Learn more at UH1.com.
And finally, while you might start by having a whole corner of the room for shoes when you're doing the like-by-like process, or a whole sofa for spare soup ladles, you'll first of all finally be in a position where you know where those things are when you need them. So when you have a sofa full of soup ladles and you've just made soup, you won't be searching the drawers and searching the piles in the kitchen. You'll say, yep, there are 18 of those on the sofa. It's easier to remember when you're putting them all there and when you see them all in one place. And secondly, you'll also be able to start putting small amounts of them away. You don't need the sofa-sized ladle pile, but you don't know what to do with it. But that's fine. Don't worry yet. But you can put 1 or 2 ladles in your kitchen drawer. It's an important start to get your head round where things are supposed to be if you have space to put those things in those places. So you don't know what to do with all the ladles. That's fine. Keep them where they are for the time being, in a bag, on a sofa, in a box, in a pile. But put 1 or 2 in the kitchen drawer and just try each time you use them to put them back in the kitchen drawer. Create a habit in that way and you're starting to win. You're doing it. You're doing it. Now, I kind of said all that like it's easy, and it's not. I think a lot of hoarders, including me, have difficulty with categorizing things. I don't know what like is. Like, do I put sellotape, which I believe Americans call Scotch tape, maybe? Do I keep sellotape with the wrapping paper? Or do I keep sellotape with stationery? Or do I keep sellotape with the scissors? And so I think I would often spread it out over the 3, which just exacerbates all of the problems. So I know it's not always easy to know what like is. But if you just try and come up with some systems, if it's too hard, simplify again. Think, okay, I'm not going to put every like with everything with its counterparts for the time being. I'm going to focus on one particular category. I'm going to sort through this pile and make sure that every book is in a pile together or in a bag together, and not worry about sorting everything that way. And the more you do it, the more practice you get, the more skilled you get at it, and the better you get at making decisions. And making decisions about stuff is one of the hardest things when you have hoarding disorder or tendencies towards it. So as always, don't let this become a process to beat yourself up about. Don't let it become an additional stress. Instead, start gently, do what you can, and as I repeatedly say on here and in my own head day after day, all progress is progress. Every tiny positive step you take is a positive step towards an eventual solution. So give it a try. Try putting like with like. If you feel like you don't know what you're doing, that's okay. If a bread knife ends up in the soup ladle pile, that's okay. Nothing awful will happen. But just give it a go. Books with books, magazines with magazines, cutlery with cutlery, toaster with toaster. I don't know how many toasters you have, but if you've got more than one, stick them all together. There's something very powerful about the visual element of having everything in one place. You might feel like you really, really need all of your notebooks, but when you put them together and realise that you have 20 blank notebooks or 200 blank notebooks, there's something about seeing that with your eyes that starts to shift something in your brain. And those weird cognitive processes that hoarders so struggle with can be interrupted a bit and challenged a bit just by seeing how many of something you have. In just 1 second, I'll give you my top tip of the week. In the meantime, please do subscribe to the podcast, review it, 5 stars would be amazing, and share it with your friends or anyone who might be interested or who might benefit from it. It all really helps. To find out more ways to support the website, the podcast, and my overall de-hoarding project, go to overcomecompulsivehoarding.co.uk/support. Now, back to your top tip. So my top tip this week is when you're having a de-hoarding session, choose 2 or 3 MITs. Now, this idea came from a woman called Leonie Dawson, who does gorgeous artwork and clever marketing stuff. And MITs stands for most important tasks. So when you have a massive task ahead of you, you say you're going to tidy, declutter, de-hoard for an hour. You'll finish your allotted time and you might not see much difference. And being able to see a difference is a big motivator. So when you can't see much difference, that can be really demotivating. But if you start off your session by setting 3 MITs, 3 most important tasks, you can find that you feel a sense of achievement if you get to the end of your hour and you've achieved your 2 or 3 MITs. So, sure, you might spend an hour working on a square foot of piles, and by the end of it just have a slightly smaller pile. But if one of your MITs was to fill 1 rubbish bag, and another of your MITs was to get it out of the house into the bin, and your 3rd MIT was to not leave the space any worse than it was, so if you've spread things out to try and understand what you're dealing with, put them back in piles afterwards, then even if you go back in the room and can't see any difference, you'll find that you feel a bit of a sense of achievement because your goals for the session have been met. So that's this week's tip. Most important tasks every time you sit down to try and make progress. Thank you for listening, and I will speak to you next week. Thank you for listening to the Overcome Compulsive Hoarding podcast. You can find more online at overcomecompulsivehoarding.co.uk. You can find me on Twitter at @thathoarder and on Facebook at Overcome Compulsive Hoarding with That Hoarder. To find out more about how you can support this podcast and the overall project, go to overcomecompulsivehoarding.co.uk/support and do subscribe to this podcast so you make sure you don't miss any future episodes.